Yes. Thank you. Okay. I'm going to call our meeting to order, our workshop for today, Monday, July the 12th. So I ask you to join me in a pledge to the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And again, please join me in a moment of silence as we think and remember and pray for our first responders here in Flagler County, all the brave men and women of our fire services, our law enforcement folks, sheriff's department, and all the brave men and women of the United States military that keep us safe here and abroad. Okay, thank you. So the subject matter here today for our workshop is a discussion of impact fees. And I guess, Michael, you leading this off? Yes, that's right. And so what we've got is the second of our workshops. We saw a cover memo on this topic. And so what we're attempting with this is because of the timing on or impact fee adoption after January 1st, after that legislation went into effect, we are to evaluate extraordinary conditions that exist prior to the adoption of any increase. And so that this being our second workshop, we've added some more items. You have that final version of the study. There may still be a couple of corrections there that we had had a closer review of this by the department heads. I sent out fairly late to them and asked them for some additional information. You'll see some of that in this presentation, where we're going to have some good detail on some departments and some areas, some impact fee types, maybe less on others. And I think that's indicative of where we are in this process. I've left it with in the cover memo saying that we could have a third workshop if you feel that it's necessary after this. Certainly as part of our adoption process, we could have one or more public hearings for adoption of the ordinance. And the ordinance itself still very much a fluid document. We've got our neighbors Giblin who's helping us with that. Also, our own county attorney and staff and working at our level, also bringing that forward to fruition. But with that, yes, sir. No, and certainly any feedback you give us, I think, is good. We're going to take that and to heart, and then we'll move forward with that. But there's no action proposed at this time, and I don't know if we had a special meeting called for with this. But, no, and certainly I think the way that your discussion will indicate to us if you're going to need some more information from us. But I could see two possible paths with this. That this being that second of the required two workshops that we have to demonstrate these conditions. Just as well, if you tell us that we need to have more information, we could also present that as part of the public hearing process. And so just realizing that that ordinarily ordinances for us are single reading, but we can certainly do this through a two reading process, and may want to anyway, just to be able to put that additional information on the record. Ms. Camp's present from Tyndall Album, and I asked her to come up. I think we'll kind of tag team on this, and I'll start out with a few of these slides so that we're going to start with the background purpose, put some more of that information on the extraordinary circumstances and next steps. And I think you heard a little bit about those extraordinary circumstances this morning when we had our budget discussion. Just put that out there, 9.2%. And some of that attributable to that new construction. So you know that that's out there. We all know that growth is happening. And so and then you have the areas that we talked about before, the impact fees themselves, adopted right now presently for transportation parks and schools with the transportation being suspended, and these other few areas that we're looking at. So again, to reinstate transportation, looking at transportation, parks and recreation, law enforcement, public buildings, library facilities, fire rescue, and EMS, and then this being that regulatory framework that we're working from. I think I included that in your backup where it was adopted by the governor. And so these are in order to create this adoption as we're heading now. I think before some of this camp come up, and we'll tag team here a little bit.
Good afternoon, Megan Campbell from Oliver. As far as the extraordinary circumstances, there's really not a definition in the legislation, but we've been through this with a couple jurisdictions, and really, in general, you don't see impact fees in the low growth areas. The counties that are not growing don't necessarily feel that pressure or would not generate enough revenues to have impact fees. So it's usually a circumstances that is created with high growth counties. So Flagler County ranks fifth in projected growth rate, so that's 1.5% per year to 2045. And the growth rate itself is the element that puts most pressure because that's what's coming against the taxpayers. It also ranks 26th in absolute population growth and 29th in permitting. So historically, the county had a limited impact fee use, and transportation, as mentioned, is under moratorium and also was last updated in 2007. Parks and recreations were last updated in 2003 and schools 2004. So those studies themselves haven't been updated 15, 20 years almost. So really, with that level of growth, you see the additional need for additional infrastructure. So the options are growth pays for its share. The existing population subsidizes the growth, so that typically means higher taxes, or the level of service they raise. Those are really the three options.
What board is the school board doing a study also?
My understanding is school board is also updating currently.
Okay.
So what we did is, I think during the last workshop, the board also asked, trying to get an idea of what the revenue generation is, and then we also looked at project needs in relation to that. And we can, like Adam mentioned, we can add more to it as we get more information from departments. So transportation, it's estimated to generate about 900 to a million if it's adopted at 100% a year. So that, as you know, transportation is always a big challenge in terms of funding. So there are plenty of projects that those dollars can be used, but some of those that were in the long-range plan were several improvements in Old Kings Road, as well as the Matanza Woods Parkway. So those two between them are about 60 million. Parks and recreation, it's estimated that the fees would generate about 400 to 500,000 per year, and those can be used for parkland purchase, recreational facility construction. Libraries probably will generate about 350 to 400,000 per year. So there's a plan to build a new administrative headquarters in the Canal branch. And then also there's a continued need for new materials. So our understanding is the current branch will become the mental health unit, and then this will replace and expand that. And the project is estimated anywhere from 6 million to 9 million. In terms of libraries, the library department provided us additional information showing that there's a decline in books and material per capita, so that's basically showing as we have more population added, there's not enough funding to maintain the same ratio. The average wait for physical materials is about 15 days. Circulation at the Canal branch has increased 300% in the last 15 years. There has been 30 to 40% increases in books, material, and electronic materials. And then at the same time, there has been about 45% reduction in state aid. So again, all this puts pressure right now on the taxpayers to make up for it. Public buildings, the revenues are around 2 to 2.5 million per year. And right now, the county is paying that service on the judicial center, and a portion of that is expansion. So impact fees can pay off that service associated with capacity projects. What that does is frees up general tax dollars for other type of expenses that that you cannot use impact fees for, like the maintenance, operations, and so on. So that can.
Is that a special case? Because I thought I read that the key is impact fees to retire that.
You can. As long as it's for capacity projects, as long as it is only for capacity projects, we have a lot of
my understanding is the impact fees we're talking about here are for the county to make a decision on. Those two roads are in Palm Coast. We also have Commerce Parkway as a possible. I just the reason I mention that is that putting things down on paper sometimes influences what happens later on. So if we're going to put down roads that we might want to work on, I think Commerce Parkway is in the county side, and maybe put that there. And I wouldn't emphasize the coast roads, even though I know we need them all, but just as a small point. What I remember too about the old Kings, of course, is that there is part that is in the county. But I'm not going to dispute what you said, though, that there's that part, the part that's currently underway right now, is the part that's in the city that's really, that's everybody's interest. But we also have that part south of 100 is our responsibility. So we do have that part, and there's quite a bit of development that we're going to be coming up with. So I just think understood.
For EMS, the annual revenues are about 400 to 450,000 per year, and my understanding there's plans to build a new fire EMS station, and the fire stations typically cost anywhere from 2.5 to 4 million, depending on how large and exact design criteria. Law enforcement about 250 to 300,000. Again, there is a bond or a note really issued for the new sheriff's operations center for 15 million. The debt service on that can be paid with impact fees. It's a new center expansion portion of it. So that helps you free up those general dollars for other purposes. So this is the slide that you've seen before, the summary of all the fees at the 100%, but this keeps the educational facilities as current rate. The fee for a single family home would go from 5,300 to 10,000. And then you have several select categories again, just as examples for other fees. And on the non-residential side, the driving fee is really the road. This was a slide that I think Commissioner Bass asked last time to compare to the surrounding jurisdictions. And again, on this one, we also added the growth rate and their ranking. So the red text means that they're under moratorium or suspended. And like transportation in Flagler County and Putnam County put all of theirs under moratorium. So currently, again, Flagler County's existing fees is about 5,300 for a mid-sized single-family home. That would potentially increase to 10,000. St. Charles County has 17,000. Volusia is about 9,300. And when you look at the growth rates, you are fifth. St. Charles is third. Putnam County is 62nd. They are growing very slowly, so it really doesn't have any pressure and also won't generate much revenues. Volusia is in the middle. So that kind of helps also, explain why there's a pressure, there's a circumstances where you may need impact fees. Next step is getting input, direction, any additional questions you would like information on, and then moving to the implementation process. I will be happy to answer any questions.
Existing DRLs that are in construction, those are have already paid, or they're still going to pay impacts when building permits are pulled. Yeah, they should still pull. They should still pay the impact fees when the permits are pulled, and then depending on the language in the development order, they may get credits or may have credits available to them. Currently, case in point, Hunter's Ridge is negotiating coming forward very soon with a notice proposed change. And one of the items they're asking for in there is that they're going to give us a cash contribution, I believe, towards parks and develop some parks. They in turn then are going to ask for credits and potentially the ability to market credits, be able to offer those to the developments. Gets a little strange there a bit, but the short answer for you is that every residential single-family permit will have an expectation of they'll pay the impact fee, and then there may be some language in the development order allowing for credits or something similar, and each one will be different. Yes, in our previous meeting, the subject of impact fees and how the money could be used, like the staff budget problems by using it.
It frees up your general fund balance. So if there's a debt service or there's a project that was funded with general fund balance and it qualifies to be funded with impact fees, and that equivalent dollar amount of the general fund is freed up to do something else.
I mean, those statements are kind of correct. I think the important thing to emphasize is what Sue had said is a little different than maybe even I put in the memo. It's a consumption-based model, but then for that portion of what we've already put into something or are planning to put in that's devoted to expansion. Not that thing that's saying, okay, they took what was old and made it new. Old jail, new jail, old service operations center, new service operations center, that portion that's devoted to expansion. I think there's a clear relationship there, remembering that the folks that are paying this now are paying for the growth, the consumption, their impacts on the level of service standards that are presently here. So they're paying directly. There's the nexus that's created between their impacts and the fees that are collected from them.
I have a feeling there's something else going on there, but maybe Faith might have a point about that. I just want to make sure I don't say something and it comes back.
If there's eligible projects, I think the quick answer there is, certainly those are able to be included in the ability for us to have impact fees. But if it's some of the funding, well, I don't know if we want to talk too much. Maybe want to let City Manel too. But anyway.
Good evening, Faith Al-Khatib, County Engineer. Commerce Parkway, it is the City of Banel owned roadway. It's not Flagler County.
But I thought we were helping Banel.
We are helping Banel. We added to our 5-year work program. We did apply for another.
I just wondering, so impact fees can't be used for that?
I think Adam may have to correct that.
So impact is collected can need to start with need to be used in the benefit district they are collected. So transportation right now excludes Banal and Pompos. Now there's an exception in most ordinances if the project is benefiting both Banal but or unincorporated county as well, and there's a PE studies or something showing that, then it can be used.
The sheriff's office really could use at least some.
Presentation is just for illustrative purposes. This is not an exclusive or exhaustive list. It's just things are showing that the funds can be used for.
Absolutely.
Oh, we put the so if we do this, when could we put this in effect? 1 January?
They become effective 90 days after adoption. Or it doesn't officially say adoption, at least
some sort of notice that these will be the fees not to exceed. Some jurisdictions do it ahead of time to gain time.
Okay. One clarification on the new Sheriff's Operations Center. That's a replacement, so it's really not new,
It
right?
has an expansion component. It's bigger. So, for example, if the original building was like 10,000 square feet, the next one is 15.
Percent.
because we are giving credit for it in our impact calculations against the cost. So it does have a expansion component.
And I'd like to appeal if I could add to that the numbers. I think this is what Sarah's getting at also. Some was that our estimates there on what you could have generated by the impact fees of these were in effect not hard and fast numbers. Certainly, if things change, situation changes, growth ends up doing something different, those numbers can fluctuate either down or up. But the good part for me is that those can help you offset your general fund dollars, and so that it's never have the expectation. Is for rough purposes of estimation, what you're looking at through the presentation is the expectation annually of what these fees could generate at the rates that are being proposed now. And so certainly something we've talked about before. You remember from Mr. Cameron's discussion we had. Options for the board. I think I touched on this. You can, as we get closer, we'll have these decisions to make. a gradual fashion. So certainly all those options are available to you. If you recall, not to call it out incorrectly, but transportation impact fee, to call that out, had not been adopted at its full rate previously. So in 2007, if I'm remembering correctly, the board opted then at that point to adopt it at less than the recommended rate. And so certainly that's something you can consider. There's options available to you. I think collectively our recommendation would be that this is the defensible study. This is what you have available to you. All options are on the table. This is the part that the 100% implementation would be, I think, collectively our recommendation that you would have as the final study indicates it, as we touched on in the PowerPoint. It seems to me that at this point, we're not ready to go to public hearings because it seems to me there's still some questions to be resolved. In other words, at the public hearing, are we going to have options there too? Or will the board have kind of said this is the best option that we can come up with, and then that goes to the public hearing. So I'm just saying, I don't think basically what I'm hearing.
About hearings, consider adoption of, those are special hearings. It's different than what we're doing right now. This is a workshop. This is not, in this context, the public hearing they're talking about.
No, I think that the next step would be development of an ordinance that we would then consider as an agenda item.
That would go to the public hearing.
It'll be part of a regular meeting as an agenda item.
Well, okay.
It'd be like any other ordinance.
Well, yes, but it has to be done twice, right?
Right, yeah, 2 readings.
So do we want the first of those to be our decision?
I guess I don't understand.
Well, what I'm saying is,
It'd be like any other ordinance.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, the appeal to me in doing a two reading step is that we would advertise at this point for the full amounts for the fund groups that we have mentioned here. We would advertise for that. The board then
I know. I just want to make sure the way we do it procedurally.
And again, we're not, as part of this process, part of this ordinance, it's not committing to any funds to any project, anything. It's the funding side of it.
Yeah.
It's the impact fee side of it, right?
So
Well, I think we should give them direction to go ahead and write the ordinance.
Can we do that at this meeting?
Sure.
Okay.
Write the ordinance at the full amount that we can charge. And then have the first reading. And then,
But it's not a motion.
not a motion, I'm
it's
suggesting
agreement
we give them
between us.
direction.
Well, that's one option.
Yeah,
We
sure.
might have different
We
options.
might have different options.
Different thoughts. Well, is there more you wanted to
I just
provide?
wanted to clarify, the study is using what we call a consumption-based methodology. So it's calculating, the rates are calculated at a level that they cannot generate enough revenues to correct existing deficiencies. That's where the existing deficiency is handled. And then after that, you can use revenues for any capacity addition projects, because sometimes we get this confusion about trying to identify each project's, this is deficient. So the example we give, if you only have impact fees and the population doubles, all it can pay for is the duplication of the existing inventory. It cannot generate enough to add to it. So there is a lot of flexibility. It's not depending on a list of projects.
Okay,
So
one more point.
Let me, can I,
Yeah, go ahead.
and that's what you did in the first presentation. You
Correct.
gave us the rationale for the consumption side of it,
Correct.
so that it ties back to how we get past existing infrastructure and existing investment to
Conditions.
growth,
Yes.
or the additional. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, my one other little concern is just the, kind of the public perception of this. We're going to, essentially, we're going to be first out of the box in Flagler County if we go forward the way we're going, before, say, Palm Coast decides on their, whatever their impact fees are going to be in the future, so on and so forth. So we do stand the chance of being out there first to be undercut by the cities. And right now, we're in a good position to attract business in, just the way things are working with the fact we have a moratorium on this. I just want to make sure, if anybody has, any of the other commissioners have any concerns about that, that we've kind of set ourselves up on this, and that might hurt us with businesses coming into the county or the cities. I think we're okay. I just want to bring that up in case it comes up later.
Well, that was the basis for the slide that had the different comparisons of the different entities, so at least, I mean,
Well, that's the county.
it doesn't have, right, it doesn't have Palm Coast in there, but it,
Right. Palm Coast in our county is a big deal because it's a lot of people.
but if you go through each of the itemized impact fees, you'll see Palm Coast listed there as a comparison.
Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up. Just mention it. I want to be, I told you so later.
Well, a large part of the impact is going to come from the residential construction side, not necessarily the business side.
Yeah.
Other questions, commissioners, comments? Any thoughts on moving forward? You made a suggestion,
I'm good with that.
okay?
I'm okay with it.
Okay? So maybe before we do a motion, we open up for public comment? We want to? Oh, yeah, we can't do a motion, right, we have to, so I guess then what we want to do is bring, the suggestion is for us to see an ordinance that would incorporate the results from the study at these numbers, so we can have public comment on it and debate. Correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Anything from staff? Okay. Okay.
Is that what you need? I mean, okay.
All right, well, we do have a public comment section, so we'll open it up for public comment. You're going to have to sit in the front row in the future.
I know, but my laptop needs energy.
Jeez.
Hardest clock when he starts walking. And I'm trying to give you factual statements too, so imagine that. Greg Blasset, President and CEO of the Palm Coast Flagler Regional Chamber of Commerce. I wanted to show up to talk about the impact fees. This is going on in other communities, other jurisdictions, as you talked about. Councilman Dance and I are sitting in the school board impact fee workshops that they're having. So let me give you a rundown. I guess I would parse my comments into two separate sections. One is going to be the economic impact, and then one is going to be, kind of the totals and realistic conversation about what we're talking about doing here. So the first is, I went through the study and calculated if you're building a 2,000-foot single-family house, what does it look like? You add them all up, and I came up with $6,518. Add to that, and Commissioner Sullivan, you had these concerns too, that this board will also be voting on the school impact fee increase that's proposed as well. So when you add that proposed $7,200 fee as it stands today, you're talking about $13,000 worth of county impact fees for a single-family residential unit, not including any other jurisdictions. What if you wanted to come here and build a quality restaurant? You're looking at stroking a check of over $16,000 for a 1,000-square-foot quality restaurant. You want 2,000 square feet, $32,000. 4,000, do the math. corporate headquarters per 1,000 square foot. It would seem like we would really want corporate headquarters to move here, but they would have to stroke a check per 1,000 square feet of nearly $6,000. Medical office buildings, something that we're working on with Mednex and UF and JU, and I've been talking to them extensively lately. Medical office building, new development here per 1,000 square feet, $7,500 plus. So those are examples of what we're really talking about in terms of impact fees and what they would look like to the end user. Other questions I started thinking about is the level of service. I think when you go through that study and you start looking at the level of service, in my mind, similar to what we're doing with schools, and maybe that's flawed, that's kind of what you could speak to, but I think as the public, it would be good to know, like, what do we need the money for and what are we going to spend it on? We're talking about a level of service on fire at 0.349 on page 11, which is higher than other counties. EMS is at 0.035 on page 11. That's lower, but how do we compare to other counties? It really wasn't listed, I don't think. Law enforcement level of service is 0.187. It's in line with other jurisdictions surrounding us, mostly higher. Public buildings, it doesn't list a level of service, so we really kind of don't know where we are with that, but that's a huge impact fee. And the amount of that impact fee is significantly higher than others in Florida, as you can see on page 37. So a lot more to go through, kind of need more than 3 minutes, but I guess where I'm getting to is the conversation has been offset the general fund, but we can really take a look at, what does this actually mean, not only to those that are trying to build new houses and buy new houses, but also bring new business to the community. So thanks for your time.
Okay, thank you, Greg. Anybody else? All right, seeing no one come forward, we'll finish up with public comment. Then any last words or anything, commissioners?
That's for adjournment.
Oh, good.
Move to adjourn.
We're adjourned.
Still thundering.
Yeah, we got a storm brewing out there.